On the return episode of Political Weathervane, weekend, August 24th, 2024, RFK Jr. announces he'll suspend his campaign for president and endorse Donald Trump. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, announced this week that 32,000 minors have gone missing since 2019. We'll talk about it. And the DNC convention was this week. We'll discuss it all here on Political Weathervane.
Trade your freedom for a false sense of right. Together we're stronger, we won't be denied. This is freedom's last stand, let's turn the tide. Let's turn the tide.
This is Political Weathervane. I'm Ben.
And I'm Shawn. For our first topic today, we're going to talk about Robert F. Kennedy suspending his presidential campaign and endorsing Donald Trump for president. This is probably going to affect the election a little bit, but I don't think it's going to make that big of an impact. What do you think?
I think it might be significant enough in certain battleground states that it might help Donald Trump a little bit.
Don't you think that some of his people that would have voted for him, though, are just going to stay home or leave that part of the ballot blank?
Yeah, there'll be some people that will, but I think it'll help him a little bit just because some people may not want Kamala to win.
Pennsylvania, it might. I was reading that RFK Jr. was taking a lot of votes from Trump in Pennsylvania. So it might give him a boost in Pennsylvania. And that's going to probably be an important state in November. It's going to probably come down to Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Were you surprised to see that happen?
Yeah, initially I was kind of surprised, but then as I heard more into it and the reasoning why and everything, it made a lot of sense. But we kind of listened to what he had to say, and we kind of got a clip here. Let's play it.
After all, the polls consistently showed me beating each of the other candidates, both in favorability and also in head-to-head matchups. And I'm sorry to say that while democracy may still be alive at the grassroots, it has become little more than a slogan for our political institutions, for our media, and for our government, and most sadly at all for me, the Democratic Party. In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it, lacking confidence in its candidate, that its candidate could win in a fair election at the voting booth. The DNC waged continual legal warfare against both President Trump and myself. Each time that our volunteers turned in those towering boxes of signatures needed to get on the ballot, the DNC dragged us into court, state after state, attempting to erase their work and to subvert the will of the voters who had signed those petitions. It deployed DNC-aligned judges to throw me and other candidates off the ballot and to throw President Trump in jail. It ran a sham primary that was rigged to prevent any serious challenge to President Biden. Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election. They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate. My uncle and my father both relished debate. They prided themselves on their capacity to go toe-to-toe with any opponent in the battle over ideas. They would be astonished to learn of a Democratic Party presidential nominee who, like Vice President Harris, has not appeared in a single interview or an unscripted encounter with voters for 35 days. This is profoundly undemocratic. How are people to choose when they don't know whom they are choosing? And how can this look to the rest of the world? My father and my uncle were always conscious of America's image abroad because of our nation's role as the template for democracy. the role model for democratic processes and the leader of the free world. Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. There in Chicago, a string of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. Well, who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention.
All right, that was RFK's comments. Point what he just said there. Do you agree with what RFK had to say?
I did, because they basically made Biden the nominee and then decided that he was too old, and now they gave it to Kamala. And Kamala did not win one primary. I don't think that's ever happened.
So you feel she didn't earn it?
She didn't earn it.
No, she didn't earn it. All right, I'm going to go into the final part of this segment. They got a response from RFK's family and what they had to say about RFK Jr. dropping out. They called it a betrayal of family values. And our members of RFK's family and extended family called it a betrayal of values that our father and our family hold most dear. And said, we want an America filled with hope and bound together by a shared vision of a brighter future. Kerry Kennedy wrote this and goes, we believe in Harrison Waltz. Our brother Bobby's decision to endorse Trump today is a betrayal of the values that our father and our family hold most dear. It is a sad ending to a sad story and a sad campaign.
Would it be his niece comment? She was the ambassador. I can't think of her name off the top of my head. Caroline Kennedy comment. I'm just curious.
I didn't see anything about it. There was just some other relatives too. But basically,
she is pretty close with the Obamas, so I was just curious.
No. I didn't see anything from her. There was other ones too, just basically calling him an embarrassment. And
one more thing, I want to say that I think his father and his uncle JFK would probably be with RFK Jr. I don't think he'd be with the rest of the family.
I think that they would be proud of his convictions. We can definitely say that for sure. I would say that John F. Kennedy would definitely be more on RFK's side. I don't know about his father. I know his father would respect what he's doing and his questioning and everything, but I don't know. Would he still be a Democrat today? Probably.
And JFK would probably not be a Republican, but he'd probably be an independent.
Possibly, yeah. We can just leave it at that. And we'll be back in a moment. We're back on Political Weathervane. Our next topic is going to be on ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. This week we learned that 32,000 illegal minors have gone missing. All right, Sean, take it away.
All right. In a report by the Inspector General has released an 18-page report titled Management Alert. ICE cannot monitor all unaccompanied migrant children released from DHS and HHS custody. But I want to be fair here. Underage applies to anyone who is under 17 years of age or younger. So there might be some teenagers in there that are just fending for themselves. But the problem is you don't know how many of those are teenagers and how many are little kids, because both are crossing the border. And who knows where those kids have ended up, the ones that are under 13. That they can't really fend for themselves yet.
So my question to you is, how many people have crossed the border in the last 5 years?
Since Biden's been in office in 3.5 years, or do you want 5 years?
Well, we'll just do 3.5 then, if that's what you have.
Since this is Custom Border Patrol, their stats, and it's about 10 million.
10 million people, wow.
And Trump has said that he's going to try and deport all these people in the first days of his new administration if he's elected. And that's going to be very difficult to do.
It's just amazing to know that for 3.5 years, basically after Trump, when he did away with all Trump's executive orders, that we basically have had open borders
Yeah.
for 3.5 years. And then when it became around election time, they finally wanted to do something about it. And it's just amazing to me. We have these people that are criminals and people going from jails and everything from Central America and South America coming here, and we're having all those types of crime and violence and everything in our streets and our cities. It's scary.
And it's not just from Central and South America anymore. I've seen Fox News has reported extensively a lot about how they're coming from China and the Middle East. So who knows who's coming across the border? They found people on the terrorist watch list across the border. So it is really scary, especially also with the Democrats' policy of being soft on crime. Like, these criminals are getting arrested and then released very soon after they're being arrested.
Yeah, it's some scary times. We got a lot of issues going on right now. I think that's the reason why we brought this show back. I think it's important that we inform people and let them know what's really going on. Yeah, despite what the media says and everything, crime has definitely gone up. I know, like, the FBI crime statistics says that there's been a decrease in crime by like 1.7%. But in reality, the National Crime Victimization Survey, which an independent party said crime has increased 75% in the last few years.
And they're repeat offenders. That's the problem, too.
It says homicides have increased 7%. Motor vehicle theft has increased by 10.5%. So crime is definitely going up, despite what the media is saying, despite what our government is saying. It's really happening. And if you don't, I think my advice would be to arm yourself and making sure follow in your Second Amendment right. I think that's important. But that's just my opinion. If you don't have that opinion, that's up to you. Our border is dangerous, and our border is not secure. Don't listen to Kamala Harris telling you that it's secure, it's safe, because it's not. The facts are there. The proof is there. And speaking of Kamala Harris, next we're going to have the DNC convention. We're going to talk about the big lies that they were spreading at the convention. Some of this information that they said, we'll talk about it, we'll discuss it.
And for our final segment tonight, we're going to talk about the Democrat National Convention that occurred this weekend. There was a lot of speakers that spoke at the convention this week, and there was a lot of misstatements and a lot of straight-up lies that they were saying about Donald Trump. So, and let's talk about the convention a little bit. Who do you think was the best speaker at the convention?
I mean, overall, I'll be fair. Say Barack Obama probably had the best speech for the Democrats. I would say some of the things I disagree with, he said, definitely. But I would say that he was able to articulate a message that was a lot better than everybody else could articulate.
Kamala's speech was not really impressive either.
No, and I didn't like Tim Walz's speech either.
No.
Michelle Obama's speech, I thought, was the complete opposite of Barack's. He was more about unity and uniting, and she was more about dividing and being divisive.
And she did a lot of taps on Donald Trump.
Yeah, but
Barack did a little bit, but I think Michelle did more than Barack did.
Oh, yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
It was kind of weird I didn't like how they did the call of the states, like the roll call of the states.
Yeah.
Usually they have the state that the person's from, put them over the top, but instead this year they did it a little bit differently, where they did all 49 states first, and then California, which is where Kamala Harris is from, was the 50th state. So they usually do it a little bit different. I just didn't like how they did it. Also, it was kind of a weird moment when Gavin Newsom said that California was, or no, they said Nancy Pelosi, the state of Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit odd too. I mentioned that, and I go, had you watch that later?
Yeah.
And just to make sure that's what I heard right. The next thing I kind of wanted to go on was the top 5 lies that were said
Okay.
during the DNC convention.
They went on and on and on about abortion, and that is their go-to topic and issue. So they were talking about Trump wants a nationwide abortion ban. He has never said that, ever. He has, from what I'm reading, it sounds like he wants to have an actual, like, let every state decide what the abortion law should be, but also have a limit of the furthest that they can go into the pregnancy is 18 weeks.
Yeah, so the Democrats were basically trying to use scare tactics like they usually do.
But it's going to work with some people.
I mean, I think those people would have voted Democrat anyway. It's just something to rejuvenate the base and trying to get them going. We have to make sure that Kamala gets elected. You know what I mean? Just a scare tactic.
And Trump, I'll be fair, Trump hasn't been very clear on how his support or his stance on abortion really is. Because before he was in politics, he was pro-choice. And then he kind of said he was pro-life. So, to be fair, when they say that he is kind of wishy-washy on abortion, they are right. Okay, the number 2 thing that they kept talking about is that Trump would ban in vitro fertilization.
Oh, so in vitro fertilization.
Yeah. And he has never said that. I don't know anybody in the Republican Party. Maybe people who are far right that's not in office, but I have not heard anybody that's in office talk about that ever.
Yeah, most people support in vitro fertilization.
And they tried to make it thing that Tim Walz's kids would have never been. He's the nominee for vice president and current governor of Minnesota, that he would have never had children if it wasn't for in vitro fertilization. Anything else you want to add?
Not to that topic. What's the next one?
The next one is Project 2025. They went on and on and on and on.
They had
They
even brought props to that one, big giant book that they made.
Trump has never endorsed Project 2025. He has never helped with 2025. That's from the Heritage Foundation, which is a think tank, conservative think tank.
Yeah, it basically says the project, a policy blueprint for a conservative presidential administration offered to work with any political campaign open to supporting their policies. The Heritage and its allies launched a project in April 2023, before Trump had even won the nomination. While many Project 25 staff have worked with Trump previously, the project did not ever consult with Trump or any other Republican candidate while drafting the document. Many people said that it aims to turn Donald Trump into a dictator.
Ridiculous.
Yet neither Trump nor the Republican Party have adopted Project 2025.
Another scare tactic.
What do you believe about Project 2025, of what you know?
There's, like Trump said, there's things in there that are actually good ideas, but then there's other things that you gotta stay away from.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of we have the deep state. I'm talking about those people that have never been elected, the bureaucrats.
Okay.
Some of those people really do need to be replaced. And we need to cut down the bureaucracy, because they really do implement a lot of the policy that's happening in the federal government.
Okay.
And the EPA and in the Department of Homeland Security. Like, we saw tons and tons of this in the healthcare law, Obamacare, when that was passed in 2010. Remember, we looked through the bill and it was always the HHS secretary and the bureaucrats are going to get to decide this and decide this.
I remember that it was a whole lot of not really any information other than somebody gets to decide how this will be.
And that was the first time, I think, I might be wrong, that we realized how big the bureaucracy was. Me and you.
Yeah, I think you're right. What's the fourth one?
That Republicans want to ban books, which is not true.
This has been something that they've been trying to do for at least 3 years.
Like we always say, we want age-themed books.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're 18 years old and you want to choose to read about sexual matters between gays and.
But it shouldn't be for kids.
No, it shouldn't be. These books are not
Age appropriate is the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You want the fifth one?
I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that we can mention. I think we're good. I think everybody more or less knows what banning books is.
They're talking about greedflation. That inflation really doesn't exist. It's those corporations that are causing things to rise, which is not the case. The Inflation Reduction Act put so much money into the economy that it has caused inflation. And we could actually add to this unless you have something to add.
No, go ahead.
Like I was telling you today, we actually talked about this before the show, how the Federal Reserve is planning on cutting interest rates and how that's probably going to cause even more inflation because what you want to do right now is actually raise rates to cool inflation.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that's one of the things that only one of the few Harris policies that they talked about was that she wants to control price gouging and everything.
And that's frightening.
And that has to do with what they call greedflation. It's suggesting that that they tackle price gouging in order to combat that, and that these companies can afford this, and they're making record profits. And it's not they're not raising their prices because of inflation. It's just they want more of your money.
Don't they understand history that countries have tried that and it has never worked out? It's always been a disaster.
I honestly question either their intelligence or because it fails every time.
Every time. Socialism does not work. Okay. We also could talk about the protests that happened at the Democrat convention in Chicago, too. There was some protests. It didn't get too much coverage.
It did get some, but I mean, if you watch just regular mainstream media, they didn't even air it. I did see on the split screens on one of the nights I watched it on Fox that they showed that the protests were going on and the demonstrations were going on, and then they had the convention on the other. What would you consider it? I think it was more peaceful than I expected, honestly. But I did see some scrimmages, and I did see a little bit of that. And I did see that they did burn the American flag and they burned the Israel flag. And that upsets me a little bit because the fact I remember being a kid and going, I'm glad that doesn't happen in our country.
We used to watch that on TV, like when Iran would do that.
Iran or Iraq or... Yeah.
They have the right to do it, but I don't like it.
They want to control us, make us comply, but we'll break the chains, we'll defy and fly. Kamala's vision may loom overhead, but in the land of the brave, we